Okay, welcome back to the Investigative Journal on this April 9th, 2015 day on our calendar. I'm your host, Greg Anthony, and you're listening to FirstAmendmentRadio.com. You can catch my show every evening from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. That's on FirstAmendmentRadio.com. No time to waste on this Thursday. You know, the Jesuits always have been on the hot seat here on this show, and it seems the more I focus on their attention on them, the less people listen. And I wonder if it's because they don't hear it anywhere else, and they think they can't believe that one single person can make a difference in the world. Is that it? Well, you can too. I mean, you're one single person, you can make a difference. And a couple things about this whole show that I wanted to tell you about before I get into my discussion here, about a name you've probably never heard, and I'll give the name right now. Pierre Teilhard de Chardin. Pierre, let's just call him Desjardins. Chardin. Do you know who he is? Well, I didn't when I first started researching it. And I'll tell you, I looked back at some of my old stories, and I found this one that I thought I'd bring back because it really talks about how we just don't listen. I mean, this story came out in 2008, and since then it's gotten only worse. And the Jesuit powers even increased. So why talk about it? I mean, the more we talk about it, the worse it gets. But we still have to understand this, that that's the way the owners of your world want it. They don't want you to be a free-thinking individual. They don't want change. They don't want the truth out. They want control. They want, they want obedient worker slaves that believe everything they say. And, pretty much they've got it under control. Most people believe what they say. And the people that don't usually either get thrown in jail, get thought of as lunatics, or basically killed. Now, I recently did a story, and I'm going to bring up 2 or 3 facts here. I've been doing that Tony Alamo story in their ministry, and I've shown how they have persecuted Christians in this country for their belief system if they cross the line about talking about the Vatican and their really true intentions, and as well as how the book of Revelations and the old reformers told us that the Antichrist resides in Rome. That's the line you can't draw. Soon it will be considered hate speech. And soon you will be jailed for that. Well, we are jailed for it now. Look at what happened to the Tony Alamo case, and there are others. I can name, I could keep going, but I won't. Pepper Saucy's another one, and I can think of many others. How about Father Alberto Rivera? And on and on and on. And how about the ministry that was started by Samuel Morse? He was the inventor of the Morse code, who spent time in Rome and told us the same things, probably more eloquently than I can do, about Rome's real intentions to overthrow the liberties of this country. Now, I was contacted by his family members that are still living today, and their ministry has been persecuted. Then, I did a whole offshoot story on the Alamo ministry regarding the kidnapping of a lot of these children by the state to dismantle this ministry, and then found out a Georgia state senator, she had done an exhaustive study of this and how the Department of Human Services and the CPS, the Child Protective Services across the country, are basically polluted with the crimes they're committing against the American families, and we showed that in her article. And it all started with the incentives of money from Washington and the Clinton administration, stating that the more kids that you put into foster care, the more money you're going to make. And then they gave basically money incentives for these CPS workers to put kids in foster care. So the truth was not even paid attention to many times. Now, I found out recently that after I did that show a couple days ago, someone sent information, which I've not verified yet, but I trust this person, that the senator who wrote this article and her husband, right after that, and she was trying to get to the bottom of this and change what was going on in America, that she officially, both of them were suicided. Interesting. Now, do you believe that? If the story's true, I doubt if they were suicided. They made it look that way. You know, I've done stories on journalists who, well, I remember one journalist who was working on a drug cartel ring. He supposedly killed himself with 2 bullet holes to the back of the head. Now, how does that happen? Now, the point I'm trying to make is that the more we do this, the worse it seems to get. But really, it's not worse for the people that understand it. It's just that how do you get the American people to wake up in a period of time when it seems to be impossible? Especially, it's even harder now because of technology. When they have control of the airwaves, when they have control of the media, when they have control of the government, when they have control of your mind, body, and soul through religion, what chance do you have to enlighten people? Well, you can do it one at a time. And here's a guy that tried to do it with some really interesting stuff. And I had known about this Jesuit priest, Pierre Delahard de Chardin. He's actually very well known by the Clintons and the Bushes and all the people that work for the Pope, who I call now, you know, somebody said, why do you call him, well, they call him Pope, okay? You can call him Mr. Pope. I call him, the one now is Pope Francisstein, because the Vatican has created a new monster there. This is the one they've created now. They create these monsters all the time, and then they say they're Christ on earth. And when you start looking at all of the garbage that they do with their Mother Mary apparitions, all of their little games they play, you start really seeing the truth about who they are. And I happened to live in Rome for 7 years, and I happened to be born a Catholic, so I was indoctrinated with this stuff since the time I was a kid. And to come to grips with it wasn't easy in the beginning, but you know what? I'm better for it. But let's look back to 2008. Now, under the Freedom of Information request, now I love the Freedom of Information Act. It makes you think that you can get anything you want from the government. Well, try to do that. You ever hear of redacting? You always get, I've sent for Freedom of Information requests, and you get this document, and there's a whole bunch of black lines in it. So they let you read what they want you to read. And then I've even had where they say these documents don't exist. But anyway, the Freedom of Disinformation Act. But in this case, it shows you it's a de-information act because the CIA, back in 2008, denied giving a New York State Senate candidate information about the secret political and theological activities of Jesuit Father Pierre Delahard de Chardin. Now, this gentleman, long time ago, appeared on my show, and he was pretty... when I met him, he just started learning about the Jesuit order, but he was a quick learner, and I'll tell you what, it shows you what one person can do. And in a letter, he decided to run for state senator of New York on basically an anti-Vatican ticket, which is unheard of. And I told him bluntly, you don't have a prayer's chance to ever get in, but you never know. And here's basically he never did get elected. But you know what? You can't fault the man for trying, and I respect him for that, because he understood a little bit about the truth. Now, in a letter to state candidate Mr. Strunk, CIA officials refused his request, but advised him to file a lawsuit over the decision. Oh, okay. Now, why wouldn't they give him this information? Well, Strunk filed his case. That was back in 2008 in the United States District Court, Eastern District of New York, naming a host of defendants, including at the time another Vatican a monster created there, Benedict, the Holy See, the Society of Jesus, and the Sovereign Military Order of Malta. A lot of good organizations there, and you start understanding who all these are, and you'll see why we're in a world of hurt here. Now, the case was assigned to Federal District Court Nina Gershon, and sits on her desk awaiting a decision on a pauper's motion. Now, did you realize you can file a pauper's motion? What is that? You got to waive your $465 filing fee because you don't have the money to do it. And they had a rule on that pauper's motion first. That could take forever. Now, in Strunk's complaint, he seeks to require, based on foreign espionage and spying. Now, here's the point I'm talking about. Why do you need to file the? Why should a 400? They say, well, you need to pay the court fees. Well, why don't you take the money that you give to the Saudi Arabian princes, and the money that you launder through the Vatican Bank, and the money you give to arms dealers, to us, so we could file lawsuits? Because I'm not gonna. Why do you want to pay these guys $465 just to get it thrown back in your face? But they'll get you from every angle. They can take your money and misuse it to the hilt, and you can show billions of dollars wasted. But they won't let you file a lawsuit because you don't have $400. That to me is ridiculous. And then they call it a pauper's motion, which is an insult to anyone. Now, in Strunk's complaint, he seeks to require, based on foreign espionage and spying, to require all Jesuit priests living and working in the United States to register as agents of a foreign power, the Vatican State. It's probably the Vatican calling me right now. Always the phone rings when I'm dealing with this issue. Maybe it's them. I won't answer. But anyway, in his complaint, he seeks to require, based on foreign espionage and spying, to require all Jesuit priests living and working in the United States to register as agents of a foreign power, the Vatican State, under a little-known act called the Logan Act. This is interesting. I agree with him. They can stay. Well, why don't they register about what they really are? Now, the Logan Act is a United States federal law that forbids unauthorized citizens from negotiating with foreign governments. It was passed in 1799, and last amended in 1994. Violation of the Logan Act is a felony punishable under federal law with imprisonment of up to 3 years. Now, let me tell you this. This act could be used to, we ought to register the President of the United States and the whole Congress for, negotiating with foreign governments to overthrow the country. That's really what it's about. And when you understand how they operate, when you understand the rulers of the world all work together, you'll understand that maybe we should use the Logan Act on not only the Jesuit priests, but on a lot of other people in power in this country. What do you think of that one? And I think Strunk was onto something here. Now, do you think anything ever came of it? Well, I do not think so. But anyway, we'll get back to that in a minute. But let's look at this more in depth and what he tried to do. And let's check the time to see where we're at. Okay, we've got about 10 minutes here. Now, Logan Act, okay, what is this? We talked about it was passed in 1799 and last amended in 1994. And a violation of the Logan Act is a felony punishable under federal law with imprisonment of up to 3 years. Now, the text of the act is broad and is addressed at any attempt of a U.S. citizen to conduct foreign relations with authority. However, there is no record of any prosecutions nor convictions ever under the Logan Act. Now, passed under the administration of John Adams, Now, when was that? Well, we all know that was a long, long time ago. During tension between the U.S. and France. It was formally named for Dr. George Logan of Pennsylvania, a state legislator and later U.S. senator and pacifist who in 1798 engaged in semi-negotiations with France during the Quasi-War. Now, here's what Strunk had to say way back then. He said, "There's more to Jesuit and Vatican power controlling our foreign domestic policy than meets the eye," said Strunk, who decided to run for New York State Senator back then in Brooklyn's 18th District. Okay. I bet you didn't even think there was one person who tried to run for office on this kind of ticket. I haven't found many. But Strunk is the first known state candidate in the entire country running on an anti-Vatican Jesuit ticket. Now, since then, I don't know anybody that did. Now, he said this to me back then. "I first became aware of the enormous power wielded in New York State and the country during the 1780s when I was involved in numerous domestic law disputes. And after researching the law, I came to the conclusion we are living under Roman Catholic canon law, which sparked my interest to research the Jesuits. I've come out openly against them, and now will gather solid evidence proving my point." You know, in Strunk's 6-count complaint, he alleges in part that based upon information and belief the CIA has records about French national Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, S.J., now that's where this guy comes in, who was a French Jesuit priest trained as a paleontologist and philosopher, and was present at the discovery of the Peking Man, and conceived such ideas as the Omega Point and the Noosphere, and who is the father of the cosmology necessary for liberation theology and the New Age movement, used by the CIA in domestic and foreign operations as an infringement of my liberty, the freedoms, and my First Amendment rights. And he also said that Father de Chardin from 1911 onward was a prominent member and founder of the underground liberation theology movement of radical Jesuit priests in France called the La Pensée, anxious to control Vatican and Holy See policy, deployed by a superior general to China. And these guys get around, don't they? In the 1920s to bring modernism into China and reestablish Jesuit control over the Chinese aristocracy and Buddhism that starting in 1704 had ended Jesuit influence in bloody persecutions of the followers of Francis Xavier by a policy decision error of Pope Clement XI. Again, another one of these monsters created the Vatican, and again by Pope Benedict. One of the he was what? I don't know how many popes they've had. In 1742, and with bringing Mao Zedong and his communists to China to power in 1949, Father de Chardin quipped of the 3 million Christians there. It's not because of their Catholicism that the faithful Chinese are better able to face the Marxism and Mao Zedong. In the final analysis, quote, "The Church will not again take up her conquering stride until she sets out to re-examine the relationship between Christ and the universe grown fantastically immense and organic." These guys get around. Now, there's other things in his lawsuit that were interesting. And let me check the time so I don't run out here. He said in 1950, de Chardin sought residence in New York City, and upon entry into the USA, the CIA interviewed him inter alia to incorporate his cosmology into CIA counterintelligence operations in domestic and hemispheric matters. So you don't think they work together with the Jesuits? Now, they got to go for advice, our government. After Father de Chardin's death in 1955, after he wrote many books, of course, the cosmology afforded the CIA's Cuban Revolution Project control over the Jesuit coadjutor, Fidel Castro, before and after the 59 takeover. Now, as the historical extension of modernist Jesuit priest Father George Tyrrell, S.J. 1861 to 1909, de Chardin, when ordained as a priest in 1911, swore an extreme oath of induction as an agent of the Vatican and Jesuit military order. And we all know about that one, don't we? The Jesuit oath. An English translation of the text of the Jesuit extreme oath of induction is meticulously recorded in the journals of the 62nd Congress, third session of the United States Congressional Record, House Calendar number 397, report number 1523, 15 February 1913. Now, of the English, okay, that's the translation of that Jesuit text. Of the more than 18,500 Jesuit priests internationally, a majority are in the United States, in which the Society of Jesus is organized into 10 provinces or geographic regions, each headed by a provincial superior appointed by the Superior General in Rome. Province, they get organized, don't they? Province offices are organized, shown in his lawsuit. Now, the Society of Jesus has 10 provinces that constitute the USA and its possessions, and are subset of part of 84 provinces globally. In short, the Jesuit order, formed by Ignatius Loyola in 1540 as a continuous global command force thrown out of 81 nations over time, and that from 1773 to 1814 sought exile in Prussia and Russia under Frederick the Great and Catherine the Great, as well as Lancashire, England, and Stonyhurst Jesuit College, are a military order, not a religious order of the Holy See, and are among the Knights of Malta, sworn to 4 oaths. 1. Obedience, chastity, poverty, and blood oath to serve with both popes, formed to reverse the Reformation under the Council of Trent, focused on the exclusive control of Jerusalem, bar any religion, all about maintaining and increasing the wealth of the papacy, the most cunning and dangerous global fighting force known. In France, controlled Napoleon and the French Terror, authored the Protocols of the Elders of Zion against the influence of Mosaic Judaism, especially Prime Minister Benjamin Disraeli and Captain Louis Dreyfus. Okay, so this is just a few of the things they've done. Now, the Vatican's Holy See in his lawsuit, and we've talked about this many times, uses her concordats. At that date there were 172, now they're up to over 200, that have been signed with sovereign nations to give the Vatican institution special privileges for control of the European Union and related projects, including the North American Union. That the New Haven, Connecticut Yale University-based secret society, Skull and Bone, initiates lifetime members, requires a sworn oath of obedience to both the Black Pope and White Pope for the title of Knight of the Eucharist. That goes on at, so what are they doing over there? We've read about that in Skull and Bones. The past and present Skull and Bones members includes public officials with Prescott Bush, George Herbert Walker Bush, George Walker Bush, John F. Kerry, who are subject to oath restrictions of the United States Constitution, Article 1, Section 9. No title of nobility should be granted by the United States, and no person holding any office of profit or trust under them shall, without the consent of the Congress, except of any present emolument, office, or title of any kind whatever from a king, prince, or foreign state. And he's claiming they take an oath to the Vatican here. Of course they do. That after the 1980 U.S. presidential election, a concordat state-to-state recognition of the Vatican State and Holy See was entered into under CIA agent Vice President George Herbert Walker Bush, control of the Reagan administration that expanded Vatican control over the USA domestic and hemispheric operations policies. President George Walker Bush's family is the biological extension of Stonyhurst Jesuit College trained George Herbert Walker. President George W. Bush's executive order of March 7th, 2007 grants diplomatic immunity and privileges to the members of the Holy See's Permanent Observer Mission to the United Nations that ensures diplomatic immunity, safe passage for diplomats outside their home country and not subject to lawsuits or prosecutions under the laws of the host country. So in short, we're going to take a break and we'll be back in 3 minutes on the Investigative Journal.
Hear it first on FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.
I know you all want answers, and believe me, so do I, and I'll do my best to get them.
Despite Nicolas Cage's promise to do his best to get left behind rapture answers for us, don't hold your breath. Not everyone believes Left Behind is true prophecy. Some may even regard as conspiratorial the mainstream re-release of the Left Behind movie with actor Nicolas Cage portraying the main character as an attempt to further reinforce in the minds of all this perception of false prophecy, in order to condition the masses for the play about to begin. If you want true Bible prophecy answers, get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. The author exposes the Latin rapture origin, the 7-year tribulation deception, true Bible revelation of Daniel's 70 weeks, the abomination of desolation, the restrainer, America in the Revelation, the image of the beast and the mark of the beast, and the truth about God's chosen people, and so much more about Bible prophecy. This book will shatter the left behind paradigm of future events. Get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.
Gold and silver is tremendously undervalued. Global demand vastly exceeds mine supply by more than 60% annually. There is little in the financial world more certain than a coming explosion in the prices of gold and silver. The U.S. dollar continues to lose value and respect as the world's reserve currency. Our nation faces challenges on many fronts, and a day doesn't pass without another economist bringing forth warnings of impending economic calamity. There has never been a better time than right now to acquire physical gold and silver. Discount Gold and Silver Trading was founded on the principles of truth and honesty. We believe in providing a quality product, quality service, and most importantly, competitive pricing. We provide all forms of precious metals, including American gold, silver, platinum, and rare investment and circulated coins. Silver bars, rounds, and 90% silver bags are on hand for the silver investor. Gold self-directed IRAs are available. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free, that's 1-800-375-4188.
Okay, we're back on the Investigative Journal, and I went over about a minute and a half in the last segment, so if you didn't hear me at the end there, you didn't miss much. But anyway, what Strunk is trying to do with this lawsuit is show what we've tried to show many times, and that is the Jesuit and Vatican power in this country. Now, my question, it's really, but I'm glad he did this because it really shows you that, first of all, we have a supposedly separation of church and state clause in our Constitution, and we all know that the Vatican is not just a church. It's also a country and a state. And my question really is, why, if really we have a free and open, independent country, and we really are looking out for the interests of the people, why our government speaks with a forked tongue, so to speak? Why they protect the Vatican when in fact they're infiltrating our country? We can show you facts from the beginning of our revolution to the involvement of the Abraham Lincoln assassination and so on and so forth, and many, many other things. But why does our government protect them and say they're just a church? Because they must have a vested interest in it. And there must be something else going on. And they must have an importance. And we see the importance of Mr. Chardin, our Father de Chardin here, giving the CIA advice. And how many other Vatican and Jesuit priests do that? Oh, there's many agents all over the world. They're not just priests. Now, we see the connection through Skull and Bones. Many, many things here. And nothing seems to get done. But let's continue, because this lawsuit bears out one fact. Our government protects these people and are guilty of, basically, trying to destroy our own country from within. Now, I thought our Constitution protected us against that, but obviously it doesn't. Because we, the people, have little power anymore. And in fact, when we really look at it, just think about who we are. Our owners tell us what to do. It's basically what it is. Now, prior to, we talked about that, President Bush's executive order of March 7, 2007, granted diplomatic immunity and privileges to the members of the Holy See's Permanent Observer Mission. The heck is that? To the United Nations, and the ensures diplomatic immunity, safe passage, for diplomats outside their home country and not subject to lawsuits or prosecution under the laws of the host country. Now, prior to Bush's order on July 1, 2004, the UN General Assembly adopted a resolution confirming and strengthening the rights of the Holy See as a permanent observer in the UN. Now, the Holy See now enjoys, among other things, the right to participate in general debate of the General Assembly, the right of reply, the right to have its communications issued and circulated directly as official documents of the Assembly, and the right to co-sponsor draft resolutions and decisions to make reference to the Holy See. The Vatican leads the global effort, he says in this lawsuit, to implement the New World Order goal for one world government and single religion under its control, excluding all others. And that, A, the Vatican's power is deeply entrenched in the UN and the politics of the U.S., includes its control over the Jesuit Order and the Knights of Malta, two of the most important groups advancing Vatican-led New World Order's goal of a one world government and religion. Vatican City is a member of CEPT, telecommunication, Eutelsat, satellite communication, International Grains Council, satellite communication, ITU, telecommunication. The Holy See, which some confuse with the Vatican City-State, participates as an observer in the African Union, the Arab League, the Council of Europe, 35 states of the Americas, IOM Migration, and the United Nations and its agencies, the Food and Agricultural, they have representatives there, and the FAO, the International Labor Organization, the UNCTAD, Trade and Investment, the UNEP, the Environment, UNESCO, Education, Science and Culture, the UN Habitat, Human Settlements, UNHCR, Refugees, UNIDO, Industry, UNWTO, Tourism, WFP, the Food Programs, WHO, Healthcare, WIPO, Patents, Copyrights and Trademarks. It participates as a guest in what is NAM, and as a full member of IAEA, Nuclear Energy, OPCW, Chemical Weapons, and OSCE Scrutiny. Security. So they have their hand in everything here. And you say they're just a religion? It's impossible. But yet, the people of America believe that. And, just to mention, the Pope's on his way here. Yeah, they're going to, and I wonder who's going to fit that bill. Because we learned in Australia that the last time he visited there, it cost taxpayers there a couple $1 million or more. And, he's coming here, and everybody is going to, pray with him and believe that he is God on earth. And, unfortunately, 99.9% of Americans will believe that. Now, Military Order of Malta, in this lawsuit, and the Malta operations, according to researchers and informative articles in Covert Action Information Bulletin, the following information contained therein. The Sovereign Military and Hospitaller Order of St. John of Jerusalem, of Rhodes, and of Malta, known as the Sovereign Military Order of Malta, or SMOM, is judicially, politically, and historically unique in the world today. The bulletin added the following: a representative, initially the most powerful segments of the European aristocracy for nearly 1,000 years, beginning with the early Crusades of the 12th century. It has organized, funded, and led military operations against states and ideas deemed to threaten the power of the Pope, concerning 3 classes of membership. Presently about 12,500 members, several thousand knights of SMOM, principally in Europe, North America, and South America, comprise the largest, most consistently powerful membership of any organization in the world today. Although an exclusively Roman Catholic organization from the 20th century onward, it has collaborated with and given high awards to non-Catholic extremists in its current crusade against progressive forces in the West. The national liberation movements, the socialist countries. To be a knight, one must not only be from wealthy aristocratic lineage, one must also have a psychological worldview, which is attracted to the crusader mentality of these warrior monks, participating in Knights of Malta, including its initiation ceremonies and feudal ritual dress. According to the Constitutional Charter, members of the order are divided into 3 classes. The members are to conduct their lives in an exemplary manner, in conformity with the teachings and precepts of the Pope, and to devote themselves to the humanitarian assistance activities of the order. The members of the first class are Knights of Justice, or professed knights, and the professed chaplains who have made vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience, aspiring to perfection according to the Pope and what they call the Gospels. They are religious for all purposes of canon law, but are not obliged to live in community. The members of the second class, by virtue of promise of obedience, are committed to living according to the Christian principles, inspiring principles of the order. They are subdivided in 3 categories: Knights and Dames of Honor and Devotion and Obedience, Knights and Dames of Grace and Devotion and Obedience, and Knights and Dames of Magistral Grace and Obedience. The third class consists of lay members who do not profess religious vows or the promise, but who live according to the principles of the Pope and the order. They are divided into 6 categories, and we could go on and on with this. Nevertheless, as a concession to the rising political, economic, and military power of the United States, in 1927, the Knights of Malta agreed to incorporate an American National Association whose members were not obliged to prove their genealogical pedigree. When the American Association of the Knights of Malta was created in 1927, the founding members included Patrick Cardinal Hayes, Edward L. Hearn, Nicholas F. Brady, Howard F. Carey, Patrick E. Crowley, James A. Farrell, James A. Fain, Edward N. Hurley, James J. Phelan, Morgan J. O'Brien, John Raskop, and John Ryan. By 1941, Francis Cardinal Spellman was listed as the Grand Protector and Spiritual Advisor of the Order, with John Raskop as Treasurer. Members included John Farrell, then President of U.S. Steel, Joseph P. Grace, and John D. Ryan. In 1934, Raskop inspired the French fascist Croix de Feu, and working closely with Morgan Banks, John Davis had been principal financiers in the plot to organize a fascist coup in the U.S. And the plan, however, failed when General Smedley Butler, who had been set up to lead the project, denounced it. The 1941 list also included Joseph Larkin, according to John Higman's Trading with the Enemy book. Joseph J. Larkin, vice president of Chase Manhattan Bank in charge of European affairs, kept the Chase Bank open in Nazi-occupied Paris throughout World War II. He had received the Order of the Grand Cross of the Knights of Malta from Pope Pius XI in 1928. He was an ardent supporter of General Franco and by extension Hitler. Morgenthau first suspected him as a fascist sympathizer in 1936. With the encouragement of Larkin, took on the Franco account, and the Reichsbank account through the Reichsbank was under the personal control of Hitler. He also mentions in his lawsuit that there is an American-Italian connection with the Vatican, Holy See, when from 1932 to 1938, the Knights of Malta, Myron Charles Taylor was the chairman of U.S. Steel. In 1939, he became U.S. envoy to Pope Pius XII, a post he maintained until 1950. According to Anthony K. Brown, author of The Last Hero, OSS Chief William Donovan secretly, that's one of our guys, had established an intelligence connection with the Vatican as early as 1941. So we don't have any connection with them outside of religious connections, right? Interesting. Why would our government protect that unless they had a vested interest? Okay, let's move on here. There's so many connections here he's trying to make that in some of these we don't, we very rarely talk about. So that's why I wanted to bring them up. He also mentioned that in 1941, when Donovan, Wild Bill Donovan they called him, secretly in Rome established an intelligence connection with the Vatican. When he evacuated from Lisbon to New York, the Dominican Father Felix A. Morleone, who had founded a European Catholic group called Pro Dio. Throughout the war, Donovan financed Morleone's Pro Dio service, and in June 1944 he went to considerable expense, time, and trouble to transport Morleone from New York and establish him at the Holy See. Subsequently, Morleone became a key figure in Vatican intelligence, working closely with Giovanni Battista Montini, the future Pope Paul VI. According to Frederick Laurent, quote, all studies of the post-World War II Nazi networks have shown the determining role played by the Vatican in the flight of war criminals, named by the CIA Operation Paperclip for operations within the U.S. and coordinated with the Vatican, the rat lines movements of the Nazis to the Western Hemisphere. That involvement was ongoing. Since April 1943, negotiations between Pope Pius XII and Archbishop Francis Spellman, the Holy See became the clandestine center of Anglo-American espionage, not only in Italy, but most of Europe and here. That's why they should be classified. Look, if they're going to stay, let's just classify them as agents. And maybe you can, then he was saying we could use the Logan Act to get rid of them. Bad chance for that. In collaboration, he went on here, in fact, had begun the previous year between Earl Brennan, a veteran of the American State Department, and Gian Battista Montini, at that time Bishop and Undersecretary of the State of Vatican. Close collaboration between the future Paul VI and the American Secret Services continued after the war through the intermediary James Jesus Angleton. With the American Grand Protector of the Knights of Malta already in contact with the Vatican, and Allen Dulles. Now, Allen Dulles, you know who he is. His brother was a Jesuit priest at Fordham. They were busy negotiating with Nazis in Switzerland. The Americans entered Rome June 4th, 1944. Leads on June 7th, General Mark Clark to make a Knight Grand Cross of Malta, right there. The Knights of Malta are mainly involved in working for and with the black nobility, the Vatican, and the various papal and royal orders, especially the Jesuits, who are ultimately in control of the Vatican and the military order of Malta, and are working hand in hand with the Commonwealth of Nations, headed by Queen Elizabeth, which is made up of 53 nations spanning the globe, accounting for 1/5 of the landmass of the earth, and a very high percentage of its strategic resources and population. Although normally an alliance of independent states, the Commonwealth was itself founded in the late 19th century as a perpetuation of the British Empire. Now, the Knights of Malta global business operations include banks and international financial structures, especially central banks. That could have something to do with our Federal Reserve. And their superstructure, the Bank of International Settlements, The little-known but extremely powerful bank for international settlements, headquartered in Basel, Switzerland, spent the 1930s and 40s quietly laundering Nazis' ill-gotten gains under a cloak of neutrality. See also banking in Switzerland, investment banking, real estate investment and development, venture capital, hedge funds, security trading. You know, we see that their connection is extensive, and we see that it's not only religious. So why does our government protect this group? I think it's pretty obvious. And it doesn't have any good intentions for us, the people. And I think when we talk about our owners, these are some of them. And most of them, and they're all, we can include Rome, all of these companies I'm going to mention, as well as our government, all working together to create a one world government, a one world order. Now, we can go through some of their connections. The Global Fund Organization, funding organizations of the Knights of Malta, European Investment Banking, with Stonyhurst Jesuit College trained Director General Mark Thompson, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the largest transparently operating charitable foundation in the world, is controlled by 3 trustees: Knight Commander of the Order of the British Empire, Bill Gates, Bilderberger, Melinda Gates, and billionaire Warren Buffett, along with several Trilateral Commission members, work for this charity project. Heritage Foundation, receiving support from nearly 100 major corporations, including Chase Manhattan, Dow Chemical, Ford Motor Company, General Motors, GlaxoSmithKline, Mobil, Procter & Gamble, secret banking and offshore banking, media and telecom corporations, entertainment distractions, mind control operations, informational repression, surveillance networks, military corporations, energy and mining corporations, petroleum, coal, metals, diamonds, water, transport corporations, airline, aviation, industry, car manufacturing, pharmaceutical corporations, and various corporations at the annual meetings of the secret Bilderberg Group, founded by the Knight of Malta, Joseph Rettinger. Geopolitically important business deals are made. Political and judicial meddling, the Order of Malta retains its claim of sovereignty under the international law and has been granted permanent observer status in the United Nations. It issues its own passports, stamps, coins, and has formal diplomatic relations with 99 states, creating global political structures, the Socialist Fascist European Union and related projects, United Nations, World Bank, International Monetary Fund, military structures. So you don't think the Knights of Malta connected to the Vatican are important? UN troops, EU police, Blackwater private military, managing the global United Intelligence, Unified Intelligence Service Network, and the specific secret services to defend and promote the Vatican Jesuit and Masonic interests. This unified international intelligence community was built during Rome's Second 30 Years' War, 1914 and 1945, and perfected during Rome's subsequent Cold War, 1945 to 1990. Policy propaganda for the purpose of social, commercial, and military control, policy institutes, international policies, the Chatham House, the EU base, formerly called Royal Institute of International Affairs, the International Institute for Strategic Studies, the Trilateral Commission, Special International Policies, the Tavistock Institute. I mean, I didn't realize all these things really exist. Aspen Institute, all controlled by the people we talk about. Now, in his lawsuit, he tried to simply show this connection and show that this country is being undermined with the help of the Jesuit order, and it hasn't gotten really anywhere. I'm sure. I think it was thrown out of court, which would you expect otherwise? Now, some of the things he mentioned in here, let me see how much time I have, because I went over the last time. I only got about 3 minutes. Now, he did mention this. He said that his complaint page, he said that the New York province for the Society of Jesus, as the agent of the Holy See and the Vatican State, operate to cause the inflow of illegal aliens to enrich the Vatican and the Knights of Malta, in that the supermajority of illegal aliens are Roman Catholic, would serve the church, business constituency, and related patronage with tax dollars. And it continues. I mean, he's got a whole number of things here that really make a lot of sense, but never will see the light of day in our court system, because our court system is controlled by the same people he talks about. And so what do we do? And how can we learn about all these people? I mean, if we can't even get the United States Freedom of Information Act to give us information that would help us to understand who really controls our country and the problems that we run into with, foreign interests taking over the freedom of the United States. I really don't know if we'll ever get down to it if we can't see the truth behind what he's even talking about here in this lawsuit. And most people won't care. And that's what I said, because most people are comfortable with the deception, are comfortable with the way that things are set up, because the powers that be just give you enough to become obedient workers, but not enough to become free thinkers and to ever get to the truth behind what their whole game is about. And so we will constantly be in this dilemma, and we will constantly talk about it. And like I said, the more we talk about it, the worse it will get. But does that mean we should stop? I don't think so. I think, if you look at what Strong tried to do, he spent a lot of time and effort putting all this stuff together, and probably learned a lot by doing it. And I remember talking to him recently. He's still at it, doing other things, and still has come up with a lot more research regarding who really controls us, who are the owners of this country, and how they all seem to work together. To do what? To take over your mind, your body, and your soul. Well, see you tomorrow on the Investigative Journal. Good night.